Hello, my friends. It is I, Dr. Jimmy, yet again. It's still the afternoon of Saturday, September 1st. Lenny is still sleeping comfortably because she's a cat. And cats, of course, spend hours every day sleeping, and then at night they run about hunting. Predators, nocturnal, claws, teeth, getcha. Oh, but I've decided to go ahead and make the third of these videos on the announcements made last week and wrap it all up with the last big announcement made last week, which was not for Orlando, the announcement for Universal Studios Hollywood and their Horror Nights event, which will also begin in 13 days on Friday, September 14th, but about 3 hours later, because they're on Pacific time. Right. All right. Because I've got nowhere else to be right now, this lazy Saturday afternoon. I don't have any work to do today, and I don't have to go out on any errands. I can relax and do my video for you, because I care. So, let's get on with it. And I hope this video won't take too long. The last big announcement this week came from Hollywood, and it was a pretty exciting one. And it, you know, again, people complain about things they've done before being done again, and yet when something that has been done year after year, in fact, all the way back to the very first Horror Nights in history, back in 1986, is brought back again. Even though it hadn't been there for a while, they brought it back again. Everyone's cheering and saying, yes, yes, yes. So inconsistency seems to be the nature of some of our Horror Nights fandom. Oh, nerdity, thou art fickle. All right, so with that being the case, let me try once again to find the correct image to show you, because it's a really wonderful... Why the hell did it do that? I hate when it does that. All right. I'm just going to do this because I'm tired of it being silly. There we go. All right. So, the announcement came last week after 2 big days of announcements. A third day had an even bigger announcement, and or at least for Hollywood, and that was the last maze was announced. The 7th maze, if you don't count the Walking Dead permanent attraction. So after announcing Stranger Things, Trick or Treat, The First Purge, Poltergeist, Halloween 4, and The Horrors of Blumhouse Chapter 2, and The Terror Tram, and Jabberwockies, and all of that, they finally got to the last big announcement for the last big maze, which is called Universal Monsters, and is showed off here on this website. And they have really spooky, delightful versions of Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman. And look at that. Look at Frankenstein. He looks quite macabre. The Wolfman looks quite feral and fierce. And Dracula, holy shit. That's not Bela Lugosi. That's not Boris Karloff or Lon Chaney. So they're bringing the classic monsters, but they're updating them. They're making them more current, just like Murdy likes to do. He likes to go beyond the movies themselves, although they will be inspired on the original classic movies from the, from the 20s to the 40s. Yes, quite exciting. And Murdy spent a lot of time talking about his lifelong love for the Universal Monsters, a love which I share. And he went on quite a bit about how he never really did this before, which is sort of true. They had a permanent, since Murdy took over in 2006, because they had Universal Classic Monsters houses before that in Hollywood. In original 1986, the Universal Classic Monsters were all over the park in various show scenes, featuring all, including the creature from Black Lagoon, show scenes in '86. Then from 1997 to the year 2000, they came back more than once in some haunted mazes. But it was indeed year 2006 when the event was revived again, after it had been from 2001 to 2005. They didn't have Horror Nights in Hollywood, but then they revived it when John Murdy returned to run the show. And he never really had a Universal Monster maze, so to speak, but they had for a while a permanent attraction, Universal's House of Horrors, that featured these characters, and they did an overlay, sometimes adding some more characters. A couple of times before that was closed down, they put in some dubstep music and had the Invisible Man as a DJ and some other interesting variations, but it was still pretty much what was normally seen during the day, with a little bit of dressing added to it. And so this is the first time he's gone into and designing a Universal Monsters maze and coming up with completely new concepts, new ideas to pull this off. And he wasn't sure. He thought it was taking a risk. His higher-ups want popular IPs that the people want to go, kids are familiar with. Universal Monsters are kind of old, and maybe they aren't relevant to the children of today. But I say, bullshit. Of course they are. These are archetypes. These will always be around. There are places in jungles of the Amazon where they've never even seen European people before, but they know who Santa Claus is, weirdly. They know who Mickey Mouse is. They recognize Superman, and they know the Universal Classic Monsters. I know that's weird, but that's how pervasive they are. They will recognize these characters everywhere from Beijing to Timbuktu. They're that well known, have become archetypes. Especially the big three, Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, who are featured in the art. But they're not the only ones who are going to be there. And he spoke at length about it at Scare LA, I believe it was. Was it Scare LA? He appeared at a bunch of these. He was at Midsummer Scream, and he was at Monsterpalooza. I think it was Scare LA, right? Because he's done a lot of these appearances this year. But it was at Scare LA, I believe, where he talked about it with Chris. And they showed all kinds of slides and pictures and costume concepts, not just for this maze, but for the scare zone that will be near it, because it's in the French area. The Monster Masquerade, which will feature Quasimodo, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the Phantom of the Opera, doing the sort of street festival parties. Thus you'll have the Masquerade Ball from the Phantom, and the Phantom will be a stilt walker in the Red Death costume, like in the movie. And Quasimodo will have the little crown on his head, like being crowned as the King of Fools from the Festival of Fools. And we'll see those characters. Well, you will if you're in Hollywood. I won't be going there, but maybe videos. So that will be going on. But the two characters will also be in the house as well. So the movies in the maze. The movies in the maze will be The Hunchback of Notre Dame, The Phantom of the Opera, Dracula, Frankenstein, The Mummy, The Invisible Man, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, and The Wolfman. I think that's 9. And I listed them in chronological order, interestingly, from 1923 to 1940, I believe. And so we don't have later iterations like like a Creature from the Black Lagoon in this one, but all of those characters will be in the maze. Now, Son of Frankenstein, wait a minute, that didn't have any, that was just the creature himself. Yes, but there's an evil character played by Bela Lugosi, Igor, that really appeared for the first time in Son of Frankenstein. And Frankenstein's assistant will be based on that character, apparently, from the artwork that I saw. A twisted, evil fellow who had been hung but survived. So we have all of this different stuff going on, and they have worked it out in a sort of modern way, reinterpreting all of these movies and connecting them, and there'll be townsfolk with pitchforks. Sometimes I have a problem with words like folk and fork that has nothing to do with the English language. It probably has to do with living in Japan for 7 years as a child. The R and L thing sometimes gets to me because although English is my first language and I don't speak it this way, I spoke it this way because I'm an American, damn it, but nevertheless, in Japan I spoke Japanese and English kind of simultaneously. I've lost most of my Japanese since I came to the United States as a boy, but I could probably pick it up if I got immersed in it again. But sometimes I think it affects my pronunciation because I find myself struggling sometimes with words like that end in an RK or an LK. Sometimes I get them reversed. So I almost said townsfolk and pitchfolk, which are two, yeah. Oh well. Nevertheless, you have the folk with the forks, and they show up to go after Frankenstein, and the opening credits of the movie apparently has been projected in the theater, and they try to burn the footage, and the monster comes out of the footage and attacks them. At least that's what was related. It sounds very surreal, and so you have different scenes from the different movies that are interconnected, and Renfield from Dracula will be featured very heavily, and the mad assistant of Dracula, which I think is based on Bela Lugosi's version of Igor, and all sorts of nifty versions of the Bride and the Monster and the Mummy and the Invisible Man. I believe they're doing, Murdy said, what they did with the floating pumpkin heads in the Halloween Hell Comes to Haddonfield maze. So black light, costumes that are just mask and bits of costume with the rest black in a room that's all black, so it looks like there's something floating. That's a clever way of getting an invisible man in there. Otherwise you couldn't see him. Like I said, someone said invisible man. I said, I don't see that. I don't see the invisible man coming because you can't. He's invisible. Ha! anyway, and there'll be, it sounds just delightful, and it's obviously a labor of passion and love for Murdy, because these are characters that he has adored and cherished since his early childhood. And so some people are worried when he talks about this, because it almost sounds like it's his farewell present to us, because a lot of people think maybe he'll be leaving after this. I don't think he's fully made up his mind yet, but the man lives in Ireland now, you know. He lives in Ireland, and then he flies over here to work on Horror Nights and does a lot of the work from home and sends it by email or whatever, but he has to come over here to do some stuff, and he gets terribly jet lagged, and then he has to fly back home, and I think we may be getting to a point where he's going to hand the reins over to Chris or someone else. And everyone's concerned because, of course, Murdy's been there for so many years. He's been running the show longer than Michael Aiello had run the show in Orlando. He didn't start until, I think it was it 2011? I think it was, because 2009 was Roddy's last year. And 2010, I think TJ Manarino was really running it, but it was in 2011 that Michael Aiello became the showrunner in Orlando. And so Murdy's been at it for years before that, since 2006. And it gets on you for a while. And, you know, this has been a long time. And he may be thinking of leaving us and going back to Ireland, maybe writing stuff maybe making move. Who knows what he might be doing? Hopefully something wonderful. But he hasn't said yet, but a lot of people are concerned that this may be his last Horror Nights. Never know, it could be. Oh, so, and this may be then his last goodbye, his last project that he really wants to get right. And so I know that he's put his heart and soul and his love into this, and it should be utterly brilliant. I wish I could get to Hollywood to see this. I really do, because it sounds amazing. I haven't even got into half the stuff he mentioned at Scare LA. I don't really have time to go through it all, but it's just full of all sorts of interesting twists and turns through the various chambers and castles, from Dracula to Frankenstein to the Invisible Man, the Wolf Man who looks quite fierce, and the Mummy and the Phantom, all of them. It just seems pretty glorious. And oh, if I had the time and opportunity and money to get all around the world, I'd go to every Horror Nights, from Japan to Orlando to Singapore to Hollywood every year. But I can't. So I have to just stay here in Orlando and enjoy this one as much as I can, because it's the one that's right here. Yeah, right next door. In my own neck of the woods. Well, 25 miles away, but still close enough to get there in a motor car. So that was the last of the big announcements last week. So we've finished them all, and this video is not even that long. Very good. So as I said, I don't think I'm going to continue today. So possibly later, definitely before the event begins, because I have a lot of spare time over the next couple of weeks, a lot more time to do videos, and so I will use that time to continue my history of Universal Orlando Halloween Horror Nights 25 and hopefully complete it and at least get a good running start on 26. And at some point I'll acquire all the remaining ingredients and do cocktail videos for Blumhouse of Horrors, and then for Scary Tales Deadly Ever After, and I've already got that one figured out. And then I can start pondering. I may wait till the event begins, but start pondering and figuring out Scare Zone cocktails. And I don't believe there are any other big announcements, so I don't think I'll be making any more of these videos for you. So it'll be history and cocktails, and once the event begins I may do a video where I talk about, you know, my reactions to the event, possibly, but hopefully. And so that's where I will leave off now. So this is Dr. Jimmy, accompanied by my delightful little Lenny cat. Hello, Lenny cat. Yes, there she is. And I will let you go to enjoy the rest of your afternoon while I go back and probably watch the Purge election year or something on telly. So, as of now, I bid you a fond farewell, and hopefully we can be together somewhere in the spooky dark, in the thick fog, and get our asses scared off of us. Well, not our asses, our pants scared off of us, because the other thing would be a dismemberment, yes, and it would be painful. Get our pants and socks and shoes scared off of us by some of those delightful scare actors out in the park in only 13 spooky days. So until next time, pleasant screams.